Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Grief, the emotional shitstorm you never signed up for. I'm your host, Margaret Dennis, a women's life empowerment and holistic grief coach. And I work primarily with women who've been through grief and trauma, specifically through infertility, miscarriage, and child loss. Though, for anyone who's been through that, it also often comes along with divorce and losing parts of ourselves. So, literally, I help women through grief. Today, I am super excited to have my really dear friend, Carole Filion, join us. She is the owner of Badass Coaching, which I absolutely love that name. And I'm excited for you to hang out with us today and hear our conversation because when we get together, we usually have a very interesting conversation and lots of information to share. So before we dive in, I'm going to read Carole's bio so you know who she is, and then we're going to jump right in. So, Carole is a reinvention coach for savvy women of a certain vintage who are ready for change but can't quite figure out what that looks like. She helps women reconnect with themselves and write their next chapter through one-on-one and group coaching, vision board workshops, and her membership program. All of it centers around her philosophy of vision, decision, self-image. Vision sets the course, decision fuels the journey, and self-image determines how far you'll go. And when one feels wobbly, the other two bear the brunt. Welcome, Carole. And I
Thank
just
you.
realized that I didn't tell people what we were going to be talking about today. So if you hung out for this long, we are going to be talking about midlife and all the fun that comes along with that lovely period of time that a majority of people that I know right now are going through. It's a fun time. It's a fun time. And there's a lot of grief that comes along with that too. And we'll touch on that throughout the episode. But first of all, Carole, I would love for you to explain what is so important about the intersection that you've created between vision, decision, and self image. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
I can. And first off, thank you so much for inviting me, Margaret. I am really excited about this conversation. And yeah, what a great way to kick it off because that's really the I think that I look at these three things, vision, decision, and self-image as foundational pillars, if you will. They support a successful life. Your vision is going to set the course, like my bio says, right? Sets the course. This is your vision, your goal, where you're going, right? Decision is your level of commitment. How committed are you to this vision? And self image is, are you that woman who can step into this vision?
Mm,
So if one of these pillars is wobbly, then it's going to affect the structure, right? So for example, fine, I've got the vision. Perfect. If I don't have a vision, the other two don't really matter because now it's just kind of you're rudderless, right? You're just kind of floating along and you and I both
mm-hmm.
know, right, how important and how powerful vision boards are. I mean, that's
Right.
just one example, but you can also visualize and meditate and really, listen to downloads and all that good stuff. But you need to have an image in your mind as to what it is you want.
Mm-hmm.
And where women are concerned, we have a hard time admitting that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want this, or I want this for my kids. I want this for my husband. But when it comes to actually owning up and saying, I want this for myself, there's something sometimes that feels off about that,
Why
right?
is that, do you think?
I think it's just a question of it's either conditioning, it's either like generational downloads, it's
Mm-hmm.
societal, it just expectations, right? And I'm not saying it happens to all women, but some women have a harder time with it than others,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So having the vision and knowing what you want, great, but the decision part, that's the piece that I sum it down to 100% is easy, 99% is hard.
Mm-hmm.
100%, when you are all in, you've burnt the ships, there is no other alternative but where you're going, and that's what you want. 99%, however, it's, yeah, I'll get on the program to release 20 pounds, but all bets are off on my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
That
Okay.
1% is bloated with the piece of cake, with the cigarette, the glass of wine, the oh, I'll do this tomorrow, or, getting the taxes done. Whatever it is, every life area has a 1% that will trip you up. And
Mm-hmm.
that speaks to your level of commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's off, then the actions attached to getting to that vision are going to be wobbly,
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. That
right?
makes a
And
lot of
so,
sense.
and self-image, that's the last one. So you could be all in, committed, you've got the vision, and dag nabbit, I've done everything to the letter to release those 20 pounds. I haven't cheated. This is the vision that I've got. But in my mind, I don't see myself 20 pounds lighter.
Mm.
I don't see myself as that sexy little badass I know I can be
Mm-hmm.
without those 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
That's really
self-image.
important. That's really important, right? Connecting to that self-image of who you actually see yourself.
Our mind thinks in images. And if
Mm-hmm.
all you're seeing is the picture that's in the mirror, but not seeing that image with the 20 pounds off and
Mm-hmm.
rocking that bathing suit or whatever, then
Yeah.
no. And it's not just, and I'm just using weight as an
Mm-hmm.
example, but it's the same thing with money. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with relationships. It's the same thing with you name it, any of
Mm-hmm.
the seven life areas. If you're not, if you're not front and center in that vision, then yeah, poof, it'll be
Yeah.
temporary. You might succeed in releasing the 20 pounds, but you're releasing it maybe for an event.
Mm-hmm.
And after the event, you're doing the drive-through at McDonald's.
Yeah. Oh my God, that would totally be me. Be like, I worked it off. How much calories is that? Okay, I can balance it out.
Yeah, right?
So
That's
when you're
it.
talking about it, Carol, when you're specifically speaking into like you really focus on the reinvention in midlife, right?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
when you're speaking to that vision, decision, self-image,
Mm.
what do you see happening with this cohort of women that are hitting midlife? And we were talking before we started about how so like this is our big wave of Gen Xers coming through right now and just the
Yep.
tail end of the boomers.
Yep.
And so what are you seeing in your programs and your coaching? Where what are some of the challenges that women in this particular cohort of midlife, we're going
Mhm.
through perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause and all the things.
Right.
What are you seeing with the women who are coming through that? I'm really curious because I know I'm in the thick of it.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
you're on the tail end of it or the other end of it, but it's been a journey and I'm curious to hear from you as to when it comes to creating that vision and making those decisions and stepping into that self-image. What are
Mhm.
you seeing happening with these women?
I see a lot of limiting beliefs that trip women up.
Okay.
And so much so that I've actually created, courtroom of the mind and putting
Yes.
a
Yes.
limiting belief on trial
Mm-hmm.
because what happens is that, especially in midlife, there are some pretty deep grooves, societal expectations, familial expectation, and so on and so forth, right? I mean, we were talking before the show started about this being the generation really that worked full time. Most of
Mm-hmm.
the majority of women were working full time. And
Mm-hmm.
when the women that raised us, mine worked, you said yours worked as well,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't the majority, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that flipped. So there were some things that were ingrained in those years that they had to, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of us had to. It was
Yeah.
like an economic necessity. Some of us were fortunate enough to earn money doing something that we loved. But what happens is with women coming into midlife, they're okay. Now I've got some sort of financial stability, or I'm in a position where I can do without this, but I want to do what I love,
Mm-hmm.
and they stall out
Mm-hmm.
either through fear or they go through some sort of life altering experience. They're dealing with grief.
Mm-hmm.
And, making life, this, like making big
Mm-hmm.
life decisions, if you're dealing with grief,
Mm-hmm.
not so easy. And grief doesn't necessarily always equate to death, right?
Right.
It's divorce, it's job loss, it's
Empty
so,
nest syndrome. It's all
and
of those things, right?
exactly. So that's the thing that I'm seeing where the vision gets blurry and it
Mm-hmm.
gets even more difficult to be able to acknowledge this is what I really want because
Mm-hmm.
it does it make fiscal sense for me to do this
Mm-hmm.
at this time? Does it make sense? Or I can't because of my kids. I can't because of right. Then
Yes.
they're so it gets tricky. It's
Mm-hmm.
well, you can navigate it,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some things that will have you still have to give certain things priority. You're kind
Mm-hmm.
of dialing some things up, but you can dial other things down.
I find
Well,
it interesting as I'm listening to you saying this is that we're the generation and the ones slightly before us that have come through, like you said, the expectation that you will work and the economic requirement that majority of women have to work, if not full time, definitely part time, to contribute to the economic support within the family,
yeah.
plus raising children. Because even though we like to talk about, oh, it's 50-50, that's a load of crap, we all know that. Where there's very like kudos to all the men out there that are picking up their share and helping. But the reality is, and the studies have shown, which don't ask me to quote them right now, I know they're there, go look for them, that women are still primarily those caregivers and they're still primarily the ones raising the kids. And so
Mhm.
not only are we trying to navigate that throughout our lifetime
Mhm.
and being the caregivers, working full time, maybe we don't have the luxury to move out, like you'd mentioned, move out of a job we don't like because we are stuck there. And same with the men, right? The men are in jobs and then they've got a family to raise. And so there was all of this stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that, we've talked about in many, many conversations that we've had before is that as we move into this phase of our life with perimenopause and menopause, which for everyone listening could start as early as 35, like
Mm.
you could start getting shifts in your hormones. It's really that big hormonal change in women, right? Moving out of the ability to bear children to being barren, I
Mhm.
guess is for the lack of better words, but our estrogen drops, our progesterone drops, our
Yeah.
testosterone, I think, drops too. And then that impacts how we manage like our cortisol. From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, and if anyone listening has other information that will be more accurate, I'm going off of things that I've heard. What I understand is it's the estrogen and progesterone that keep our cortisol kind of in check, right?
Ah,
Keep us in
okay.
balance. So cortisol is our stress hormone.
Right.
So when you think about it, we are going through life. We're going to work. We're managing the kids. We're helping with the household. We're doing all the things. And it's very stressful to do all of that. But we've had the support of our hormones that have balanced that out. Then you start hitting perimenopause and menopause, and it's bye bye support, hello cortisol. And our bodies go, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they really are like it, you feel as a woman who's been going through this for a few years, you feel like your body's rebelling and you're like, what's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's that realization of that you're moving forward into a different phase of life and that there's grief attached to that, a
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
But there's also that, and I've heard somebody say it's like a metamorphosis of women moving into a state where, what do they call it? Your fuck it 50s. Like it's like
I
fuck
like
it.
it.
I don't, and you what we're seeing is a lot more women are like leaving relationships.
Yeah.
They're not putting up with the crappy job. They're breaking out on their own and starting their new thing. Hello, that was me.
Mhm.
Um pretty much. Yeah, tick tick tick. Okay, we're doing a lot of that stuff. But I think it's also the time in our life where we're actually feeling more supported to do that.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but we're having to manage our energy, manage our time, figure out how to work this,
Yeah.
and to be put into a position where we now can create this new vision for ourselves,
Mm.
make those decisions that we could feel really shaky about, and
Mhm.
step into this new self-image of this beautiful matriarch at the end, like in the third act. I think that's what you call it, right? The third
Third
act of
act.
your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Jane
Being
Fonda. Yeah.
it's You get to move into that space,
Hmm.
But when you have lived a life where you have been constantly putting majority of people ahead of yourself, because
Hmm.
that's just how we're wired, really. Like, we're the nurturers, we're the caregivers. And yes, there are a lot of really impressive, powerful CEO women out there crushing businesses, and I love that. But there is also, when you look at the majority of women, we aren't in those really high power jobs. We're in more of the support roles, even throughout the economy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now we're trying to break into something new. Now
Right.
we're being told you can do whatever you want. For a lot of us, it's I've done the 30 years in my career and I'm retiring now. So now what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's the grief of losing that
Hmm.
stability, right? No matter what that looked like for you. It
Hmm.
may be the grief of your partner suddenly passing.
Hmm.
It may be the grief of a relationship breaking down. It could be you got downsized, because we're seeing a lot of that right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Happened
It
to
could
me.
be, yeah, it could be your kids moving out, empty nest syndrome.
Hmm.
It could be your best friend moving away because they've retired. Now they're going off to see the world. Like, it could be anything. Maybe
Yeah.
you've decided to downsize and you're moving to a different city,
Yeah.
or there's so many things that all of a sudden, not only are we trying to embark on this new phase, we're also grieving everything we're leaving behind.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we don't have the hormonal support to do it. So
Right.
now
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd be curious to hear your experience with that. But
Hmm.
I know for me, I don't handle things as well as I used to. My patience is shit. It really is. Like,
Yeah.
I have
Understand.
always struggled with patience a little bit,
Hmm.
but my patience now can go from like to a zero in about a minus a nanosecond. Like,
Yeah.
I find that if I'm overloaded, I can't do it. When I have too much coming at me,
Hmm.
it's just too much.
Yeah.
And I can't make sense of it. I can't
Yeah.
make sense of it.
Yeah.
So
So,
one
I mean, the
second though.
way there's a lot of stuff to unpack there, but no,
Mm-hmm.
you're right. You
Mm-hmm.
did hit on so many things. One thing that I am big on and I like to share with my clients is to always make sure that you've got what you need in your toolkit. That
Mm-hmm.
is, if your nervous system is right, you can't make decisions
Mm-hmm.
when you're in an agitated state,
Yeah.
right? And you're right, it happens more frequently. And then there are other factors. We were talking about that, late diagnosis ADHD, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole other can of worms. But let's just to skim the
Yeah.
top,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of women, when they were were diagnosed as having, oh, it's a hormonal issue when it really turned out to be ADHD was at the source. They weren't depressed and anxiety, it
Yeah.
was ADHD. And but
Mm-hmm.
in any case, so there's all of these things that come into play. But when we're equipped with go-to tools, and I mean fast tools,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's
Mm-hmm.
breath work, whether it is grounding, like just kicking off your shoes, getting out in the backyard, just standing on the
Yes.
grass and just getting recalibrated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then moving on, because that's the first order of business is, like you said, let's get the cortisol in check. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the hormones do kind of even that out when up to a certain point, but then yeah, at my age when like
Mm-hmm.
hello, powdered eggs,
Yeah. Yes.
you know. So,
Yeah.
it's when you get to that stage, then yeah, you're right. The cortisol then catches up. And
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't have any ways of self-regulate,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it becomes a problem. Well, case in point, by the time when I hit 61, I was at the highest weight I'd ever
Mm-hmm.
been and was at a loss. Like, what do I do? So, long story short, I I signed on for this program and it worked 4 months and I released 30 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, the reason, and I was able to pretty much keep it off
Mm-hmm.
with some fluctuations. Like we just had to move and, in
Mm-hmm.
stressful situations, like long-term stress. But nevertheless, like now I'm back to where I was.
Mm-hmm.
The difference was the emphasis on mindset.
Okay.
And that's the key. And that tapped into decision and self-image.
Mm-hmm.
Any other time I had released weight, it came right back on. Never saw
Mm-hmm.
myself. I was thin growing
Mm-hmm.
up and throughout high school and everything else. And then it just kind of ratcheted up. And once it
Mm-hmm.
caught up with me, it was like a runaway train.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, how else can I explain that I released 30 pounds at 61?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
When women think of that and go, oh, well, there's no way, forget it. I'm just going to live with
Mm-hmm.
it and I'm fine with it. For me, it was I made the decision
Mm-hmm.
and I was all in. But
Mm-hmm.
being part of all in re, was being in the mindset of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what got me into coaching because I saw how powerful that was. And
Mm-hmm.
I came out the other end went, if I can do that, what else can I do?
Yeah. Well,
And
how about
so,
building up your self-image with that right there? Like
yeah,
exactly that
exactly.
statement. If I can do that, what else can I do? And
Exactly.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It does. I can see how that would be impacting your vision,
Yeah.
the decision, because you have
Yeah.
proof that you've done it before. And then
Yeah.
this self-image of, oh, I've created this person. Now I can create this person.
Right.
And
And that's
yeah.
why I thought it was important to be, I felt called to do the coaching thing
Mm-hmm.
because I saw what was possible. And
Mm-hmm.
so going back to your original question, like what is it that you see with women is that, yeah, they have a hard time deciding because they can't quite, it isn't quite clear,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it isn't. And so for me, it's the whole reinvention thing. For you, it's being able to help them see past the grief
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, it might be your lifelong companion, but you can work with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can be alongside
Yeah.
it. It doesn't have to be leading
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah. There's a time and a place for it to definitely be front and center, but there also is a time and a place for you to figure out, okay, this is my life now.
Yeah.
What do I want? And
Mhm.
that can be a really scary place to be. And there's a lot of grief there too, because your entire life that you had planned together, like say you did lose a spouse, the
Mhm.
entire plan of being together forever. I actually have someone in my network, very difficult to be watching. She's like my age or a little bit younger, diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer a year and a
Mhm.
half, 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and married the love of her life 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like it was just, it's been a beautiful story to watch. But now they're looking at, there's no more trials, there's no more things. And so
Mhm.
I can't just imagine what that, all of that anticipatory grief that's playing into the grief that's coming as well. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of grief around that situation, and they're not alone in that. That is a very common for one partner or another to get ill.
Hmm.
And I'm
Interesting.
wondering if it's the incredibly stressful life that we've been living, and the crappy food we've been eating. I don't know, there's a whole other episode or
Oh, for
thing into
sure,
that
for
one.
sure.
But
But
it's
you,
interesting with the grief that
yeah,
comes up when people hit this stage, because we don't know what's going to hit us at this time.
yeah, absolutely. And there's
Mm-hmm.
ambiguous grief too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of hides in the nooks and crannies of,
Mm-hmm.
like losing a friendship and knowing that, oh yeah, no, this was fine. It needed to end, that kind of thing. But there's still a piece
Mm-hmm.
that creeps up you're playing whack-a-mole every once in a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm.
This, those feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, acknowledging them, processing them, understanding that they're there. Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, hey, I'm not a therapist, but
Mm-hmm.
I certainly understand the value of not pushing anything down and letting it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, see it for what it is,
Yeah.
and
And
then
that
move on.
100% agree
Yeah.
with you on that. And it's exactly what I encourage my clients to do, is like you have to walk through that fire. You
Hmm.
have to feel to heal,
Yeah.
and you don't have to do it all in one day. It is a journey, and it's
Right.
actually a lifetime journey, right? And there's a beautiful TED talk by, I wish I could remember her last name. Her first name is Nora, but she talks about moving forward with grief, and she lost her
Mm.
partner and then, has remarried and created this life. And I think she has a group called the Hot Widows Club or something. It's
Oh,
it's
cool.
really good.
Yeah.
But it's coming to terms with this new way of being.
Hmm.
And you have to allow yourself to grieve whatever you've lost.
Hmm.
So for all of us moving into this menopause stage and
Hmm.
perimenopause stage, there is grief attached to just that change in life. Even when we go from being a child to a teenager and a teenager to an adult, and we're
Mm.
moving from our home to our school or out in the world, or maybe we're moving into our new partner's place,
Hmm.
there's even grief in that. Like I say to people, I'm like, there's grief when a baby is born, even though it's a very joyous occasion. There's still grief attached because now you, as the parents, will never, ever, 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 ever be a solo unit. You are now responsible for another human for at
Hmm.
least 18 years,
Yeah.
if not longer. Right. And so your choices now are no longer
Hmm.
100% just about you. You now have this little human to look after.
Hmm.
Same when people get married, right? It's beautiful day. Everyone's happy. But there's also a little bit of grief because you are now no longer single. You're that life that you had before. You are now joined to another. And
Yeah.
when I tell people that, they're like, really? I hadn't thought of it that way. I'm like, yes. So
You're right.
there's all kinds of grief out there, like you said, that hidden
Mhm.
grief that we're not aware of. And when
Yeah.
we're moving into menopause, I think a lot of us think, oh, it's just another phase of life. And there's so many things about, you know, guaranteed you're going to put on all this weight, which, when weight comes on, I'll be honest, when weight started coming on, I was like, what? But I also went,
Yeah.
oh, well, I guess that's just the way it is. That's what we've been told. And what
Yep.
you've just said is, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And I know there's a lot of nutritionists and people out there talking about it. That's just one thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And I wasn't
it's,
expecting it, to be honest. I was thinking, well, all right. Yeah, I kind of get the mindset thing. I had sort of kind of heard about it,
mm-hmm,
but I was so committed. I was 100% in.
mm-hmm,
So everything to the letter. So I was like, one more thing to check off. Okay, then I have to
mm-hmm,
do this visualization and the all of that good stuff, writing my goal every day and so on. And they're simple,
mm-hmm,
really a lot of it was mostly based on Bob Proctor's work. So
mm-hmm,
and I was already familiar with him. So I was like, okay, well that makes sense. All right. So, I just did it, but it turns out that it's the constant spaced repetition
okay.
that creates new patterns and that neuroplasticity kicks in. You can
Mm-hmm,
rewire your brain, but it has to be fed constantly.
mm-hmm,
Constantly. It
yeah,
has to be. And so that's what wound up happening.
mm-hmm,
And before I knew it, 4 months in, there
there
was
you
a
were.
very different number on the scale.
Mm-hmm,
So there's the thing, right? It's all of the pieces. It isn't just about the food.
mm-mm. It's never
That's
just about the food.
never,
And I
never.
think that's, yeah. And so this actually, that vision, decision, self-image is something we can apply across all ages. But I
Absolutely.
love how you focused on this particular cohort, the midlife, especially the stuff that we go through.
Yeah.
Um, and it
Well,
is something actually,
the vision changes so
oh,
radically at this
it
age. That's the
does.
thing. We have a lot more choices. We have more
Mm-hmm.
options. We're dealing with a lot more stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with families, grown kids, and the
Mm-hmm.
relationships have shifted all
Mm-hmm.
around. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's, oh, what do I want? Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, right? So it's all
And that
right.
can be a scary place to be in.
Big
Like
time
when
scary.
someone says, what do you want? I've had, because I know when I work with my clients, right? Usually we're doing a lot of healing before
Hmm.
we get to that visioning part. The visioning is at the end of our coaching program.
Hmm.
And a lot of them have never actually given themselves permission to dream.
Right.
Permission. They always thought, oh, that's for someone else, or I can't possibly do that. It's a scary place to think about what you might want in your life.
Mm.
And what I find for a lot of women, and I'm not sure who you have in your cohorts and things, but I know the women that I've worked with who have lost a spouse or left a relationship,
Hmm.
mostly if they've lost a spouse, there's a sense of guilt,
Hmm.
really heavy guilt about, I don't think I should be dreaming about a really good life right now because I just lost someone. I'm not supposed to be happy, right? There's
Yeah.
that whole misnomer and idea that we have to stay in our guilt and our grief for the rest of our lives. Well, when you
Yeah.
lose someone at 55 or 60, you have 20, 30, maybe 40 years left.
Yep.
when you think about it, that's just less than half of what you've already lived. Like you were not meant to live in that. You're meant to move through it and
Yeah.
you're meant to feel it and it sucks,
Yeah.
but you're also meant to live. And
Mhm.
so working with you would be incredible to be able to really expand on that vision. And I love that we have that alignment in the vision boarding. And so I love doing vision boards with
Yeah.
my
Oh,
clients.
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and one of the things too that I'm finding is, and I've just started delving into it myself, is really being aware or knowing, having an intimate knowledge of what your core values are.
Yes. Yes.
I'm reading Susie Welch, Becoming You.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about that. It's essentially it's trying to find your area of transcendence,
Okay.
right? So and that brings in your values and a number of other things. But essentially, and I did the values bridge
Mm-hmm.
assessment, and it was really interesting because what I thought my core values were really what I thought other people expected of me. So when
Mm.
I did the quiz, right, that's just it, right? I mean, oh, I'm a mother, I have children, so I must be family centric.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, that's actually moderate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's that I have other core values that, so, I look at someone like Oprah, for example. I'm not comparing myself to Oprah by any stretch of the imagination, but, she was always asked, like, why not get married and why
Mm-hmm.
not have kids and that kind of thing. That's not part of her core values.
Right.
But her core value clearly is one called radius, and that is to have an impact on the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, right, there's only so much room. I think Susie Welch has broken it down into it's 16 categories now.
Okay.
So, yeah, and they're your core, your top,
Mm-hmm.
your moderate, and your peripheral. So it doesn't mean that they're not important, is that they're not as important. There's
Mm-hmm.
some things that are going to be front and center. And
Mm-hmm.
so when women struggle with their job, they struggle in their marriage, they struggle in whatever, there's that push pull, what Susie Welch calls the authenticity gap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The core values are here, but they're not living them.
Right.
They're living someone else's core value, or they're living the core values that they think are expected.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's really deep
that
work for them to do.
it really is, because if you're out of alignment, that's when burnout happens. That's when depression happens. That's when anxiety happens. All of those things. Your
Mm-hmm.
pillars
Mm-hmm.
constantly get wobbly because if you're not in touch with your core values, how the hell do you know what your vision is?
Mm-hmm.
If
Right.
if you're thinking everybody else expects this to be important to you, how is your vision going to be authentic to who you are?
Mm-hmm.
So you got
I
to
think
get
it takes a
that.
really, yeah, it takes a really strong, and I don't like using the word strong, but a really strong woman to say, no, this is what's really important to me. I
Yeah.
know it's not your value or your value or your value, but this is what's important to me. And this is how I want to live in alignment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of grief coming around that too, because you
Bingo.
have to let
Yeah.
go of all these preconceived ideas of who
Yeah.
you are supposed to be and what you are supposed to find important. I love that you brought up the family centric because I think there's a lot of us who've had children and
Mhm.
family is important, but it may not be as important as freedom or
Yeah.
joy or
Yeah.
radius, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, right? Like it
Yeah.
may not be as important when it's important, but it's not the be all and end all. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes when we figure that out about ourselves, sometimes we judge ourselves for having values
Exactly.
that are
Yeah.
out of alignment with the expectations of
With
maybe
a
you're supposed to.
societal expectation. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
here's my question is,
Yeah.
where did society tell us that these are what our values are supposed to be, right? Where do we get all that messaging? Well, it's on the TV shows, on the movies, in the
Yeah.
magazines, in the articles. It's all that messaging
Mhm.
that we're consuming all the time. that
Mhm.
sort of show
Well,
us, well, that.
yeah, it's kind of half and half because it's
Mm-hmm.
yes, you're right. It came externally and we were taught and kind of from, maybe with the patriarchal,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
bent to it.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also done our share of training people
Yes.
to expect that. Oh, okay, I'm a mom now. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to have this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have that. And we start shooting all over ourselves in
Yes.
doing this. And people around us see us doing this and go, all right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we blow a gasket and they go, what?
Yeah.
What happened? Right? Because we were keeping mum about
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
we wanted, although it wasn't really clear. It was
Mm-hmm.
just that we were so out of alignment that,
Yeah.
I mean, think of a car, right? We get the wheels aligned on a regular basis. Why? Because how rough is that ride when your car is out
Mm-hmm.
of alignment?
Yeah. And when we don't even understand why we're out of alignment,
Yeah,
that's
even
the big
worse.
part. I
That's
think
worse.
I highly recommend all of you who are listening go out and figure out your values, whether it's through
Yeah.
the values bridge. I have a values exercise I do with my clients, and it's incredible what kind, and do it with your partner, do it with your family, figure out, because when you understand what
Hmm.
everyone's values are, that will be like huge light bulbs
Yeah.
around why are we conflicting all the time about this, that, or the other, right? I
Yeah.
found that was very enlightening.
Yeah. And when
um
the first thing to do too, you brought it up, is, check the critic at the door.
mm-hmm.
Give your inner critic a couple bucks to go out and grab a
Yeah.
coffee
Or a glass of
and don't,
wine, whatever.
right, or whatever. Yeah, but don't, yeah, exactly, do it with an open mind and be
Mm-hmm.
authentic, be real with yourself, that when you're
Yes.
asked the question, what is it that you would really like, is it this or that, answer honestly, because there's no
Mm-hmm.
judgment. There
No.
is no judgment. Your values are your values. And people who live by their values are those that actually bring the gifts to this world. We
Mm-hmm.
need all of it.
Yes,
We
we do.
need people who have affluence as a core value because then they teach others how to
Mm-hmm.
manage money and how to, right? It's that
Right.
kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
we need everybody to be stepping into who they truly are.
Yes, they really
That's,
do. Oh,
yeah.
Carol, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I want to just wrap it up by saying that if you're living your midlife right now,
Yeah.
tap into your values,
Yeah.
revisit them,
Yeah.
just figure out who you are and
Mhm.
allow yourself to really lean into what's most important to you. And there's going to be grief involved if they're misaligned. There's going to be
Yeah.
grief involved throughout this, and let yourself ride through it. Let yourself feel the feels and go through those waves, and reach out for other, to other women who are going through it, support groups, Carol, myself,
Yeah.
for that kind of support.
Yeah.
Before we sign off for today, Carol, you sort of skimmed over it a little bit earlier about the women who have been diagnosed with ADHD later in life.
Yeah.
And I just want to tease the audience and let you know that I'm going to have Carol back, and we are going to talk about this, because as we have discovered, more and more of us in this cohort are getting diagnosed with ADHD, and we have some theories around why. And we would
Absolutely.
love to share it with you. And again, that brings its own level of grief, right? There's that judgment piece, that sadness, that understanding, the breaking wide open. So we're going to dive into
Yeah.
that in another episode. One
Absolutely.
last thing, Carol, you have a freebie that you are
I
going to be
do.
sharing with people. Can you
I
explain a little bit about that?
I do. I have a really short quiz that is I find extremely helpful because I've gone through it a couple of times myself. So it's like, okay, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mentioned earlier that, yeah, sometimes the vision can be a little fuzzy and we don't
Mm-hmm.
know. So the quiz is called the visionary archetype. So what
Oh,
kind of dreamer are you? There's just,
okay.
maybe a dozen questions, but you'll either be a diamond, a sapphire, an
Oh,
opal, or
yes.
an emerald. So,
Mm-hmm.
and, not one is better than the other. You just wind up dreaming differently. Some are
Mm-hmm.
more practical, some are more philosophical, and so on and so forth. So this is really a quiz that will not only help you identify the type of dreamer that you are, but it'll give you some actionable steps that you can take to
Mm.
start crafting your vision and
Oh, I
taking
love
the
that.
next steps for your midlife reinvention.
Oh my goodness. I love that. So we will put the link to that in the show notes down below. You
Awesome.
can grab that.
Terrific.
And if anyone is curious to learn more, you're more than welcome to reach out to Carole. I will be putting all of her contact information in the notes as well. Carole, thank you so much for joining me today. I know we could have talked for hours, we usually do. And I just so appreciative of you sharing your knowledge and your experience and bringing it to life here on the show for us. I really appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Margaret.
Oh, you're
Always a
very
pleasure.
welcome. You're very welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Stay tuned for the next episode of Grief, the Emotional Shitstorm You Never Signed Up For. We'll see you later.